everyone, welcome back, and it's time for another anime review. This is going to probably be one of the oldest anime I've ever reviewed. It came from, not the oldest, no, I've reviewed some from the 90s, like Agent Ica and Dragon Half. Remember off the top of my head, because those are the most recent old ones I reviewed. But this one's from 2001, okay? It is Pretear, which is another one of these classic magical girl anime, because despite the fact that I'm a guy, I love magical girl anime. Shut up. Anyways, and this one was kind of, I'm not sure if it's the first to really alter the standard formula that Sailor Moon left, but it was definitely the first I've ever seen to do that. Which is where instead of having a group of magical girls, you essentially just have one magical girl. And I'll explain how that works when I get into the review. It was directed by... Oh wow, the manga was really close. Didn't run for very long. May 30th, 2000 to July 8th, 2001. Huh. Well, anyways, though, the anime was directed by Kyoko Sayama and produced by three studios: Hall filmmaker Kodokawa Shoten and Rondo Robe, and it originally ran from April 4th, 2001 to June 27th, 2001, with a total of 13 episodes in the end. Okay, so what is Pretear? Well, in general, aside from the few changes, like I said, that it changed up from the standard formula of magical girl anime that Sailor Moon left, if you probably know what's going to happen in Pretear. There's this group of girls, in this case just one girl, who ends up getting magical girl powers and has to save the world. That's basically the plot. Now, there are a few twists and turns here and there, but that does get into my major complaint, which really isn't a complaint, it's just kind of a downside of knowing the formula, which I'll get into later on, okay? The plot isn't anything special, but it works. I'm not going to... Well, I never dock stuff for being uncreative anyways, but you can't really dock this for being uncreative because it's... What is it now, like... 12, 13... It's over 13 years old. I mean, you can't really dock this for being uncreative because this was very common at the time, you know. And it was refreshing to see this finally, because you never really see this anymore. I think this type of a plot's very interesting, okay? It's good versus evil, but the evil one actually ends up being saved in the end by the protagonist, and basically, okay? So that's something that's a little bit different that you actually didn't see very much even back then. But overall, the plot's simplistic, but it works. I like it. However, that comes with my biggest kind of, not really complaint, but it's something that, you know, might annoy some people, is that if you know this storyline, then you know pretty much, you can predict a lot of stuff that's going to happen. Okay, for example, I predicted that not a single protagonist was going to die. Granted, some of them did, but they were revived in the end, okay? Even the main character who sacrificed her life to revive everyone else who had died, when she was kissed by the one she fell in love with, basically one of the Leafy Knights, I'll get into what they are later on, she ends up being revived as well. Okay, so I predicted that none of the protagonists were going to be dead in the end. I predicted that the Princess of Disaster, who was the main villain of the series, forget what her name was. Hold on a sec here. Oh my. Natsume? No. I don't know. But whatever her name is, I'll just call her the Princess of Disaster. She ends up being saved in the end. I predicted that would happen, okay? I really did. Granted, towards the end it looked like that wasn't going to happen, but I predicted that was going to happen. It happened, okay? I predicted that even though what's that one guy, Leafy Knight, that Sasame was betraying the Leafy Knights, it wasn't going to last forever, and he was going to end up being their friend again at the end. I predicted that, and there's other things as well. Basically, I was able to predict a lot of this, so for some people that might drag them out of the series, for You know, just so you know, if you're not too big into older anime, that might drag you out of the series. To me, it really did. Something like that will not drag me out of the series. Okay? It never really has. As long as it's well written, I will like it. And this is a prime example of that. But just to warn you, if you don't like predictability like that, then it might drag you out of the series. Okay? Anyways, though. Other than that, the plot is really good and strong, I think, because it's well written. And all the cliches that are used in here, which even by 2001 standards, were still, or 2000 standards if you want to go by when the manga started, were still cliches by that time, you know. But the cliches that are used well. They are well written, which makes them good, okay? Now let's talk about the characters. The only characters I'm really going to talk about are the Princess of Disaster. First off, Himino, then as well as the Princess of Disaster. Miwata, and the Alife Knights. Okay. Well, some of them, anyways. At least Hayato and Sasame. Anyway, so let's talk about Himino. Himino is a pretty generic main character, but again, she works because the writing is strong in this series, okay? That's the reason why her character works, because the writing is very strong. Like with everything else in this series, okay? Because her character is basically, she's the 16-year-old heroine of the series. After her mother's death and her father's remarriage, Himino is thrust into a high-class society life where she has trouble adjusting, as she is picked on by both her new family and her peers at school. All except for Mawata, who's the only one of her new sisters who doesn't treat her like shit. Okay? And actually, the two of them seem to get along quite well. At least later on in the series, it does show that the two of them seem to get along quite well. Okay? Which is good. Okay? It's not really much to say about her character, except that I liked her. Okay? Because she was a generic character, but she didn't seem to be too naive, in the sense that she didn't think that she could do everything by herself. Granted, she didn't hesitate to throw herself into harm's way if it meant she would save her friends and family, but that doesn't mean that she was the type of character that didn't want to accept help from others because she was afraid that they'd get hurt, okay? She wasn't so naive that she thought that she could do everything by herself just because she's a Pretear. But before I talk about any other characters, let me talk about how she gets her powers. Basically, there's no actual, I know in a lot of magical girl anime, there's like this little animal or something that gives them their powers. Not the case here. Basically, since there's only one of them, one of the Alife Knights, who are the guardians who want to protect the universe, but they have to search for the Pretear, end up preting with her. It's called Preet. And basically what that is that they hold hands and then they kind of come fused together, but not in the Dragon Ball Z sense where their appearance completely changes and their personality seems to completely change. In this sense, we have, of course, a standard magical girl transformation scene. Himino gets her costume, and then she gets her powers with the one who she preets with, I guess going inside of her soul or something, I'm guessing is what they're trying to get at there. So it's kind of a unique way to do it, you know. So I just want to talk about exactly what preeting is, real quick. Anyways, so nothing more really for me to say about Himino. I'm also going to talk about Mawata, who is the youngest of the rich daughters, basically. She's intelligent and composed. Mawata is seemingly a perfect child of the family. However, her outwardly calm demeanor is usually a facade to hide her loneliness and mask her own sense of loss after her father's death. Basically, she feels that her entire family doesn't love her, that they don't understand her. And because of that makes her temporarily go over to the side of well, Sasame, because falling in love with Sasame, because at that time Sasame was on the Princess of Disaster side. Okay. Until she, Sasame betrays her, which he of course regrets later, and then, but she ends up getting saved, and everything's hunky dory at the end, of course. But she was actually probably my favorite character in the series. I really wish that she got more screen time than she did, because she was my favorite character in the series. I really sympathized with her. Okay, I really did, and I really wish that she not necessarily was the main character, but I really wish that maybe the series was longer and later, like doubled the length, and later on in the series she would actually become a Pretear too, and for the first time there would be like 2 Pretears or something, I would have actually really loved that. Okay. So, yeah. And like I said before, her and Himino seem to get along pretty well. Because she's not really a snobby bitch like Mawata's sisters are. Okay, she doesn't let the fact that her family's wealthy get the go to her head and stuff. She's actually a really nice girl. Okay. So anyways though, moving away from her, I'm not going to talk about any of the other sisters or any of the other members of the family, or the butler, or the maid. There's also the Life Knights. Hayate's the main one, and he's the love interest for the main character, Himino. Okay. Hayate, is the standard, it's pretty much the standard romance where the two can't stand each other, but then they eventually warm up to each other in the end, and they fall in love. That's basically the type of romance that this is, okay? But the reason he doesn't want to be close to her in the end isn't really because of he hates her, but it's because he doesn't want to fall in love again because he's afraid he'll be hurt again, because 16 years prior to the start of the series, he was actually in love with the creature of the time, which later became known as the Princess of Disaster, who they have to fight in the series because she fell in love with him, but he actually didn't fall in love with her. And the thing is, so I guess that's kind of confusing because before I said he was, but the thing is that because of that she fell into despair and became the Princess of Disaster, and he's afraid that since she's the Pretear, if he breaks her heart, even if it's by accident, he's afraid that she'll turn into another Princess of Disaster. Okay, and there's actually some really good scenes in this series where she is starting to fall into despair, and she's afraid that she will turn into the Princess of Disaster. So I really like how they dealt with that as well. But I thought the romance was cliche, but I still liked it because I'm a sucker for good romances. And once again, the cliches that they used in this series were well written. Okay. Another one of my favorite characters, probably my second favorite character in the series, was actually Sasame. Okay. He's the Knight of Sound and has the job of a radio personality while he's in his human form, basically. And he, 16 years ago, was actually in love with the Princess of Disaster. Again, I don't remember what her actual name is, so I'm just going to refer to her as the Princess of Disaster. He was in love with her, but she was in love with Hayate. And he actually tried to hide his feelings, and it even helped the rest of the Life Knights obviously seal her away when she became the Princess of Disaster, because he felt that if he could hide his feelings, his despair would go away, but it didn't. And now, since she's resurfaced again as the Princess of Disaster, he decided to actually go over to her side and profess his love to her, and eventually, at first I thought she was just going to end up using him and then eventually killing him, but eventually she did fall in love with him. Okay, and after she's saved at the end, those two are basically together as a couple. Alright. The reason why I love this character so much is because even when he goes over to her side, he's not like a ruthless killing machine, who will gladly slaughter and take the lives of his comrades. He actually doesn't want to fight any of his comrades, which eventually gets the Princess of Disaster to believe that he maybe doesn't really love her, even though he actually kind of does. Okay, but at the end they are together as well. So that's at least a good thing. So he was my second favorite character in the series. None of the other Life Knights I really think are worth talking about. Okay, So yeah, I mean there are some other minor characters, and there's also some demons as well, minor demons as well, which I don't really think are worth talking about. Um, so yeah, but anyways though, other than that, like all of the characters I thought fit their purpose as well, especially the main ones I think are worth something, which are Himino, Mawaka, Hayato, and Sasame, and the Princess of Disaster. The Princess of Disaster was a pretty good character as well. She came off as a generic villain for the majority of the series, but later on you really felt, at least I really felt to sympathize with her. But those are really the only 5 characters I think are worth a lot in this series. Other than that, all the other characters are there. They don't really serve a huge purpose. They're just kind of there, but that's not a complaint really. Now, the art, I think, I actually really like the art. It shows its age. Like, you won't see anime with this art today, I'm pretty sure. But I did like looking at it, though. You know, I like the classic feel of it, okay? And also, the animation is surprisingly good. And when you watch it, if you don't watch old anime, you might say, no, it's not bad, but it's not great either. But gotta remember, this anime came out in 2001, so you really, over 13 years ago, so you really have to weigh and balance, like, when it came out. And for the time, it had some really fucking good animation for anime, okay? It really did. So another thing I want to say about that, the music is really good for the time. I don't really remember any of it now, but it was really good for the moment, and the opening and ending I thought were really good and really catchy. Alright, so anyways, overall, what did I think about Pretear in the end? I really liked it, okay? I was really glad to finally get to watch a classic Magical Girl anime. Still need to watch Magic Knight Grey Earth, though, which I've heard is an amazing series. But still, I was really glad to get to watch this anime a classic Magical Girl anime finally. And now that I did, I'm satisfied. Okay, and I definitely recommend this. If you're a fan of Magical Girl series, but for some reason you haven't checked this one out yet, I recommend it, definitely. If you're not a fan of Magical Girl series, though, like, this series does some things different from others, but from the standard formula that Sailor Moon left, but really, it's still more of the same. So if you're not a fan of Magical Girl anime, I really couldn't see this, and you've got that fixated into your head right now, then I really couldn't see this, like, changing your mind all of a sudden. Okay? So that is definitely worth mentioning. Alright, so anyways, overall, I hope you enjoyed this review, guys. See you guys. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.